And I was given $1,200 as a tax return in April. I specifically did not use it for another filing with the court. I had one prepared, but I said to myself, no. They have committed fraud involving my legal filings numerous times, and I already know they have deals pending and working. And to be honest with you, I believe they actually used my legal filings as part of the financing of a terrorist attack that they're trying to masquerade as a health pandemic. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to buy things that would have been not only derivatively, but directly connected to the kind of safety that could potentially have prevented against a justification for launching biological warfare. And I'm going to use it as evidence. And that's what I did. Now we're in a different situation because I have available, again, another legal filing. But again, they're doing the same stuff that they did before. They're trying to get me to kick it back locally and allow some other people to use my filings as loans. And the problem is that because of the consistent mischaracterization, what they end up using them as loans for ends up financing acts of terrorism. And I know that. I can't, in all good consciousness, allow for another diversion for a local kickback. I can't. I already know that if nothing else, they should have said, you know what? We don't have jurisdiction, and we do have, as was requested, the capacity to use our own judgment and allow for it to be referred somewhere else or to be transferred. We can actually call for a transfer into this jurisdiction, and then we can move forward on it in the manner that it was requested in the actual filing. They could have done those things. They did other things instead. And so we are where we are. Now, I've just made some vocal files, some audio files about some reactions I'm having this evening about things that are going on both domestically and internationally that are very correlated and very connected. And there is this context right now of this alleged COVID relief package that I've been following in my own way. I've put information on LinkedIn and I've put information on my blogs. I've also posted YouTube videos. I consider these not only evidence in my ongoing investigation and efforts at trying to prosecute, but I also understand that part of financing and part of supporting people, including financially and allowing for underwriting that actually provides security, is about benchmarking and establishing timelines on when events occur and when awareness of events occur that could be engaged and can be followed through on in order to prevent against escalation. And part of what we've been experiencing, especially in the last 4 years in the United States, is a refusal to address honestly, accurately, and directly what the actual threats are, and allowing instead for it to be misrepresented as some sort of spy or spycraft or intelligence, when the truth of the matter is that we have oftentimes been prevented from an appropriate evidence submission and security process so that we can actually follow through on prosecuting crime. And the national security apparatus has been abusing its power in order to cover up for criminals. Why? Well, that's the topic of the suit. And it is unconstitutional for them to engage these processes. And in the meantime, who's been prevented from being able to work? Who's been prevented from being able to pay on their obligations? Who's been prevented from being able to pay their taxes? That's supposed to be certain people's responsibility to make sure payments get made and to make sure taxes get paid. Well, what is paying of a tax? What is meeting an obligation, especially if we're talking about federal appropriations processes? I say this because in the last year and a half, I filed a filing with the federal district court in Dallas. That would have been $400 to file. Then I filed an appeal, which would have been, I believe, $155. Then I filed two filings with the district court in January of last year, each of which would have been $400. And then I filed with the Supreme Court of the United States, which would have been $450. Then I had to file motions and I had to file appeals in the 2 cases I had with the district court, which would have been $150 3 times because there were two additional filings, and then there was an appeal later, a request for consolidation of cases and a transfer of jurisdiction. So altogether, it's probably about under $3,000 just in filing fees, but we're not including the photocopying, we're not including the notarization, we're not including the postage. We're also not including hours I've spent doing research, hours I've spent collecting evidence, hours I've spent trying to do preliminary reports and also to follow through on investigating in the timelines. Hours I've spent researching other cases, including opinions of other cases that could potentially be relevant to the formulation of my arguments, and that would have been things that I would have presented in court were I to have been allowed to go to court. All of that was labor that was uncompensated, and meanwhile, I've been surveilled the whole time. I've been spied on the whole time. Nobody's gotten back to me on any of my reports, some of which are over 3 years old with open case numbers, which means even by the standards of the Office of Management and Budget, and by standards that a lot of the Federal Reserve comment periods have let me know, it would mean that they're in default in some manner, way, shape, or form. Right? I haven't gotten compensated for any of that. I haven't gotten acknowledged for any of that. And because it hasn't been closed out and it hasn't been reported on, then there's no way that insofar as that a lot of it is responding to fraud involving programs that have been appropriated for, then there's no way to follow up on what were the original outlays and the original appropriations associated with those programs. How much obligation do we have just for the HHS? How much obligation do we have for HUD? How much obligation do we have for the Department of Defense or Veterans Healthcare? Those are just some examples. And I'm not even talking about the state government, where I keep getting kicked back to the local city governments in the 5 cities I've been trafficked to in the last 5 years, where I keep getting kicked back to. So all of this is income for someone, somewhere. But if I don't get a statement and I don't get a report and I don't pay taxes, who gets to claim it as what kind of income? Who is getting allowed to claim credit for income, compensation, or some kind of revenue? Not to mention product development that has been completely mischaracterized and misrepresented. Because I haven't gotten anything. I haven't gotten anything, and in the meantime, what has been taken? Now I have right here, I'm going to show you. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's 12 handwritten pages of an appeal that I've had ready for several weeks that I intended to have filed by today. But I can't get anybody on the phone that will give me a formal title, give me a formal name, and will give me anything other than, well, go back to the same people that ripped you off and lied to you the entire time. They keep kicking it back to the same people. And fortunately, I've been in Dallas now. I'm going on 3 years in Dallas, right? Got here in May of 2018. I've been in Dallas 2.5 years. So they just keep kicking it back to the same people here. It's like there's a electronic field. There's some sort of screen on me. I'm allowed to talk to one person, and every single time I get referred to the same people who have gotten me to this point and done what? Do you know how much they owe me? Here's the problem. I'm not that kind of a creditor. I'm not the kind of person that's going to go knock out their kneecap. I'm not the kind of person that's going to break their fucking foot. I'm not the kind of person that's going to hook up an electronic account on their minor daughter's vagina. That's why I can't go to them. That's why I need somebody else. And that's why I can't even type this up. I can't even type it up on my own computer because these people are so incapable of operating in an ethical comportment that they literally stole my operating software license and won't allow me to get a response from the company that provides the software. I can't even type it up unless I know that once I type it up and I send it, there's a way to confirm that it got to the place it was supposed to get instead of getting intercepted by loco narcos that are going to use it to finance weapons smuggling and acts of terrorism. How much is that worth, Donald? How much is that worth, Nancy? What about you, Ted? How much is this worth? How much relief do you think I'm worth? Is it 600? Is it 2,000? Are you going to pay, finally, for the filing fees you stole from me for your political campaigns? All three of you ran election campaigns, and not just the three of you ran election campaigns where information I sent to you, the committees and the agencies you were responsible for, ended up in your campaign. People didn't get paid for that. We didn't get credit for what ended up following through. What we got was years worth of smut under the auspices of dealing with spies and hacking. And you guys refuse to even take responsibility for what COVID-19 is, which is a default on your own cyber paradigm as somebody else called you on. I did not get anything close to an appropriate evidence submissions process, and I did not get anybody for the second time in less than 3 months to give me a process besides trying to get me to agree to kickbacks to local narcos that have infiltrated the government and are trafficking people to smuggle weapons used for acts of terrorism. But I could have. I could have done it this year. I could have done it last year. I could have done it the year before. But I didn't get to. And we got 9 minutes until midnight in Washington, D.C. Merry fucking Christmas. I'll see you tomorrow. Or rather, the day after 10 minutes.